Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of Orange County Board of Supervisors for June 13, 2017. We'll begin our meeting with the invocation to be offered by Supervisor Bartlett. And today's Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Supervisor Nelson. Would you please all stand?
Please rise. Please bow your heads and join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we gather here today on this warm and beautiful June morning, ready to deliberate on the annual county budget and other important items. Today, we are especially grateful for the collaborative work between the county staff and the Board of Supervisors. We have many accomplishments this past year that signify a new beginning in our journey as a county, addressing the homelessness challenges, building a new animal shelter, approval of new plans for the Civic Center, and plans to pay off the remaining bankruptcy debt next year, just to name a few. Please guide us and give us wisdom to make the best decisions for the county and its residents. We realize that our board decisions have important and long-lasting impacts and shape our county for the future. We also ask for a special blessing for our first responders and the men and women in military who are serving our country and protecting our freedom. Please watch over them and keep them out of harm's way. We ask all this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Y'all please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Enthusiastic pledge of allegiance there.
Thank you, Supervisor Bartlett and Supervisor Nelson. Just a couple of reminders for today's meeting. Please use the side entrance to my left when entering and leaving the room. All other doors are alarmed and are for emergency exit only. Please set all phones to mute or vibrate at this time and for the duration of the meeting. The clerk of the board has prepared a summary of the information you will need to help you effectively participate in today's meeting, which appears on the screens above to the left and right of the dais. We'll now move to the public comment section of the agenda. At this time, members of the public may address the Board of Supervisors on any items on the agenda, excluding public hearings, or any issue that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. This is the only opportunity for public input except for scheduled public hearing items. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Yes, we have 66.
Okay. Madam Clerk, we had 60-something last meeting and then it grew, right? So
Yeah, we started
the total figure was how many? Last year?
Yes, we ended up with 70-some.
70-some. Okay. County Council, we're going to make this to 2 minutes per each because we have a public hearing speakers too, right?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The board, the chair, in fact, has the authority to reduce the amount of time allocated to each speaker if the number of speakers would preclude the board from accomplishing its business in a reasonably efficient manner. And, of course, the board does have the budget hearing today, and I think my understanding is we need about 5 hours of time to get through the budget process. We also have some additional items on the agenda, so I think the board should target concluding public comment by about 12:30. So with between 2.5 and 3 hours, I think a 2-minute limitation for each speaker would be reasonable.
Okay, thank you for coming, all the speakers. Please stay within 2 minutes and please don't be repetitive. And we heard about 60-some members last time, so try not to be repetitive, and we're going to call for 3 names. First 3 names, please.
First 3 speakers, if you can line up behind the podium, Rusty Kennedy, Michael Piel, and Janine Robbins.
Good morning, I'm Rusty Kennedy. In our last couple of meetings, we had about 85 speakers address you on OC Human Relations. So we're asking today that none of our supporters address your board. I think you've heard all you need to hear from the amazing people that came out for us. We had another 300 plus in the audience supporting the Orange County Human Relations, and diverse people from business, communities, from all over law enforcement, different faiths, income levels, ethnicities, regions. So we're here, I know, with the budget hearings and the really critical issues of homelessness, where many, many people want to speak, and we support that critical issue. So we're going to defer any comments from the rest of our supporters, if they will. Let me just highlight a couple of things in the lurch. First, our nonprofit was created to support the mission of the Human Relations Commission. A little more independent since about 25 years ago, when our budget was limited and we were asked to go out and raise funds, and we created a nonprofit to do that. So we took very seriously last year's direction from Supervisors, and we went out to bid. We competed in the bid system and won that bid. Very pleased to have won that bid. So we've been asked a lot of different things in the process by your members, things that you would like to see as changes and address concerns. I think we've addressed them all, each one of them to the best of our ability, and we're open to continue that process as long as you would like, and have members that would like to change. We'd like to make that as effective as we can. I would like to say that over the 40 years that I've been serving you, it's been my pleasure and honor to do so, and I think that the commission has become one of the most highly regarded commissions in the state, and we feel very proud of that for the county. In conclusion, let me just say that the denial of the funding of this contract will cause 3 commission professional staff to lose their jobs, and the 26 years of work that we've done with our nonprofit being evicted as well. So with that, I want to thank you very much. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve you during this time, and I look forward to sitting and listening to the deliberations.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Monsieur, Madame, good morning. My name is Michael Dill. I have been homeless. It's a crisis for me to continue to be a crisis for everyone who is homeless. I know their pain. I see it. I feel it. This crisis of homelessness touches every community in this county. It weighs on our students and low-paid workers. It can be seen in people living in their cars in the riverbed. Tent City is expanding in the riverbed and are pressing on neighborhoods that thought they would never be in this situation. The crisis of homelessness, like the crisis of poverty, impacts all of us in our hearts, in our conscience, in our values. It impacts our neighborhoods and property values. If it's not pressing against your neighborhood where you live, then it likely in the next one over, and it's coming your way. It's coming everyone's way. All of us who is speaking today believe that an injury to one is an injury to all. When homelessness strikes one person, it impacts all of us. All of the county collectively pay about $300 million per year in relation to homelessness. $300 million per, and the problem's getting worse. It's time to do something different with $300 million. It's time to do something different with the county's discretionary money so that it can be fixed. We'll show you today that there is a solution and that you have the money for the solution. The thing that stands between homelessness today is the path to the real solution is political will to do it. During this budget process, the month you have the opportunity to get the path to a real solution. The crisis demands a solution, humane solution that lifts people up and not criminalizes them. The homelessness is housing. It can be life-changing, and it will change our community and county in the most fundamental way.
Thank you. Please stay within 2 minutes. Next speaker, please.
The next 3 speakers will be Mark Richard Daniels, Linda Linkerine, and Karina Granados.
Good morning. I'm here to talk about wealth. Orange County is the wealthiest in the region. This county is the site of the headquarters of several Fortune 500 companies like Western Digital, Broadcom, and Allergan. This county is home to at least 8 billionaires with a total combined wealth of nearly $40 billion. This county is home to over 100,000 millionaire households. All of that is part of the background for the rosy economic picture painted by the budget document when it talks about a continued recovery and growth. But that is a picture of a small sliver at the top of Orange County. We are here today as a voice for the 99%, not in those mansions, but those who are struggling with house payments and rent, and especially for the tens of thousands of homeless people in this county. Today, we speak in memory of those who have died on the streets and in the riverbed, those who were abandoned by their government in the cruelest way possible. Today, we are here to lift them up and to insist that you revise the budget to focus on the needs of the real Orange County, the families and communities who are stressed by finances, who can look at homeless encampments and see themselves there if they miss a paycheck or two. We are here as a homeless voice for justice against criminalization and against police brutality, stealing the belongings and shooting them for riding bikes. We are here with our undocumented sisters and brothers, and we stand against ICE destroying our communities. Let's get Homeland Security out of the budget and get homes into the budget. We are here as a homeless voice demanding the human dignity that comes with housing. It is up to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Madam Chair, members of the Board of Supervisors, my name is Mark Richard Daniels, born here in Orange County. The rich are getting richer, and everyone else is getting poorer, and therefore moving in a direction of homelessness, I included. This is a fact that every poor and working person can see and feel, but there are a few facts to back this up. The income and the assets of millionaires and billionaires have had vastly increased, while the income and assets of the rest of us have been stagnant or declined. Middle class, which doesn't really exist anymore, is feeling a strain financially. The median income in the county is 5% below what it was in 2006. The income of these jobs paying below $50,000, like machinists and people working in retail, see wages decrease over the same period. Many of these people are at risk of bankruptcy and homelessness, myself included. If they hit the unexpected big medical bill, I have surgery on Thursday, then the layoff of personal emergency, many people make less than $35,000 or in a consistent state of financial strain. We ask you today to put together a trust fund for the homeless. And once and for all, let's build on that. And let's restore the dignity of these people that are citizens of the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. Linda Linkreen, resident of Anaheim. The spectrum of homelessness begins with those on the edge. Much of the county is on the edge of homelessness. The 2017 Orange County Community Indicator Report shows that 34% of neighborhoods in Orange County are on the edge of financial instability based on income, employment, and the amount spent on rent. Their map shows that every region of the county has neighborhoods in distress. Large parts of Anaheim, La Habra, San Juan Capistrano, and Stanton were on the list, as were areas in Buena Park, Westminster, Costa Mesa, Laguna Woods, Rancho Santa Margarita, and San Clemente. We need a safety net that goes beyond food stamps and general relief, because those do not solve the problem of homelessness. We need a government and a budget that says to these communities, we have your back. Step one in that commitment should be housing for people experiencing homelessness. You have a 10-year plan to end homelessness through housing. We urge you to keep that promise and fund the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next three speakers after Karina Granados are Israel Hernandez, Madeline Spencer, and Susan Sani.
Good morning. My name is Karina Granados, a junior at Anaheim High School, and I'd like to begin by thanking the Board of Supervisors for allowing me to be here and speak. I'm here to speak on behalf of our youth, who are hit especially hard by homelessness. According to the Community Indicators Report, in the 2015-2016 school year, there were 28,450 pre-K through 12th grade students who were homeless or living in unstable living conditions. Most of these students, over 25,000, live in families that are doubled or tripled up with another family. This number has grown 119% in 10 years. Since 2006-2007, the increase in homeless students has been shocking, and so has where they are living. Over 100% increases in those living on the street and in shelters. We need permanent supportive housing with childcare as crucial pillars to stabilize families and get people on the path and out of poverty. The specter of homelessness also haunts higher education. According to this unofficial studies conducted by the California State University System, 10% of CSU students and 14% of California's community college students are homeless. Additionally, 1 in 4 UC students are having to choose between paying for food and paying for housing. And it's not just the youth. In 2015, 40,000 seniors in Orange County were living in poverty. Do we want children and seniors to be the image of Orange County and the reflection of our values? No. The time is now for action to create a housing trust fund and take definite, meaningful steps to end homelessness with housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Israel Hernandez, and I'm a recent graduate of Anaheim High School. Through the course of my experience during my senior year, I had a friend who became homeless, and my parents took it upon themselves to house him and give him the resources that they need to continue their education at my school. How is it possible that in Orange County, one of the wealthiest counties in the nation, lies an estimated population of about 30,000 people who qualify as homeless? In my city, there are about 4,000 students in the Anaheim Union High School District who are considered homeless by standard of living. These students, indifferent by nature to you and I, have the same level of beautiful goals and desires for their future as any other person would. While many believe that the topic of homelessness is too big to be tackled, my personal experience with a friend have made me realize that no issue is too big with our combined efforts. Tucker is the oldest out of his 2 siblings at 17 years old. Spencer is the next oldest by 2 years, and Duncan, the youngest, by 3 years. Tucker and his family have been living in California for the majority of their lifetime, having moved around the state several times. He, along with his family, started to get financially impacted about 4 years ago during the worst part of my life, as Duncan said, when their father sustained an injury to his left ankle that made him temporarily disabled and unable to work. So their mom suffered the same fate, but with her left wrist. The 4 years since have been a constant transition of housing for mere survival. I met Tucker in band, and through the course of my experience in meeting him, he is one of the most talented individuals I know, smartest, talented individuals I've ever come across. And the fact that he's homeless is just, it's egregious. We have to end this because students shouldn't bear the destitute of being homeless. And honestly, like, it's excruciating. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Madeline's not here, so my name is Susan Sani. Do you want to call the next 3 people before I speak? Or? Okay. My name is Susan Sani. I'm a resident of Orange County in District 2. Many people who thought that they were secure because they had a good job are now facing the possibility or the actuality of homelessness. Company closures and mass layoffs are devastating to workers. What happens when a good job in IT or healthcare or manufacturing closes? I have a good salary and good benefits, and the company I work for was just sold to an out-of-state company. I myself am facing being unable to afford to continue living in Orange County. I'm fearful about how I will handle medical expenses because I have 3.5 years before I turn 65. The possibility of falling into poverty is a very real concern for me. How many of our neighbors are in the same boat? Boeing will shut down more than 2,400 jobs from Huntington Beach facility over the next 4 years. In April, 51,000 Orange County residents were unemployed. But unemployment numbers can be misleading. The number may be much higher than what is reported, since unemployment benefits expire and people sometimes just give up. And many people who are listed as employed don't have a livable income. The unemployment rate is over 4% in the cities of Garden Grove, Anaheim, Stanton, and Westminster. These are our neighbors. They are among those who need affordable housing, who need the county to take action to fund and create affordable housing now. In the last year, approximately 50 companies have laid off almost 6,000 people permanently. For the tens of thousands of your constituents who are facing these very real catastrophic possibilities, the need for affordable housing is critical
Your time is up.
and immediate.
Could you just sum up, please? Thank you.
The next three speakers are Karina Ramirez, Isela Lopez, and Katrina Bessam.
Good morning. My name is Karina Ramirez, and I am president of ALAS at Oxford Academy. I know rent here in Orange County is not affordable because I have seen my parents struggle pay rent even though they have worked so hard at doing so. The federal government and the county both define affordable housing as housing that costs less than 30% of one's income. In Orange County, 232,500 renters were paying more than that last year, an increase of 10.8% from only 3 years earlier. Statistics show that 78% of those making between $30,000 and $40,000 pay more than 30% of their income on rent. Of those making more than $45,000, 26% pay more than 30% of their income on rent. Those in severe financial conditions pay more than 50% of their income on rent. Of those making $15,000 or less per year, 82% pay more than 50%. Of those making between $15,000 and $30,000, 66% pay more than 50%. Of those making between $30,000 and $45,000, 35% pay more than 50%. According to the 2017 Orange County Community Indicator Report, the hourly wage needed to afford a medium-priced one-bedroom unit was $27.62. Equivalent to an annual income of $57,440. This is about $2 per hour more than just a year earlier. According to the 2016 figures, the wage needed for a medium two-bedroom apartment is $32.15. Orange County's high cost of living is driven by housing costs, which are estimated to be 356% higher than the national average. Today, we are a voice for the 232,500 renters who are stressed by paying more than they should for rent. Together, let's solve the homeless crisis now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Rosa Isela Lopez. I live in Anaheim, California. I'm here representing all low-wage workers in Orange County. The truth is that we cannot afford rent, and that puts us on a greater risk of homeless. Our numbers are only growing. The good news, more jobs are opening up, but the bad news is they are largely low-wage jobs with few benefits. The hotel and leisure industry is big in Orange County. Disney, for example, has 22,000 workers. The average wage in the industry is $24,336 a year, less than half what is needed for a one-bedroom apartment. By Orange County standards, Disney starts custodians and housekeepers at under $10.75 an hour. Security starts at $13 per hour, and pastry cooks starts at $13.52 per hour. Fast food jobs are among the fastest growing positions in Orange County. They are mostly minimum wage jobs. In 2005 report by the Orange County Community Organized for Responsible Development pointed that 97% of the tourism job projected over the next 10 years will be paid less than $40,000. 80% of tourism jobs will pay over average wages of less than $26,000. How many Disney workers are homeless or near homeless? Let's support the Disney workers' demand for decent wages, and let's create housing trust now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next three speakers are Patricia Cortez, Brian Lopez, and Daniel Robbins.
Hi, my name is Katrina Bessam. I'm a resident of Anaheim. I'm a nursing student and a healthcare worker. Healthcare accounts for about 10% of all jobs in Orange County. One of the fastest growing jobs is medical assistant, yet they do not earn enough for a one-bedroom apartment using the 30% rule. Wages for personal care aides are less than half the amount needed. UCI pays medical assistants about $20 per hour. Jobs in the healthcare may be increasing in some areas, but not all of them are secure. Memorial Health in Long Beach just laid off 422 workers permanently. Healthcare professionals providing critical services to the poor, and especially the homeless, are themselves at risk of homelessness in Orange County. This has not been a priority for the county and local employers. But it's not just healthcare. In Orange County, the median hourly wages for carpenters, machinists, and administrative assistants are too low to afford a median one-bedroom apartment. In the financial industry, the typical Bank of America teller's salary is $13 per hour. In manufacturing, Boeing is a big name and gets big profits, yet the typical Boeing assembler salary makes only $17 per hour. Office jobs that are critical to the functioning of any business are on the rise, but many of them are temp jobs, and most of them are at the low end of the pay scale, administrative and supportive services. A UCI clerk, for example, starts at $15.85 and a librarian assistant at $15. Workers in the healthcare, banking, administrative, and supportive services who are financially stressed would benefit by knowing that the county government was actually doing something about homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Patricia Cortez. I reside in San Clemente, and I'm here representing AFSCME Local 2076 in support of housing for everybody. The housing wage, who falls below it? Guess what? County jobs fall below the housing wage. The County of Orange is contributing to homelessness by paying their workers less than what it takes to afford rent. Thousands of workers working for the County of Orange government make less than the county-established housing wages, despite the critically important work that they do for the community. Home care workers who take care of the elderly and disabled in their homes make only $10.50 per hour. Workers who make sure that people get the food stamps and Medi-Cal they deserve start off at $17.84 per hour, way below the wage for a one-bedroom apartment here. Housing program specialists begin at $18.34, and even their top pay after a decade is below the needed for a one-bedroom apartment. They help people get Section 8, and they can't even afford a one-bedroom apartment in Orange County. That's ridiculous. The county starts pay for all of the classifications below, which I'm going to read a couple of them, at under $36,000 per year. So they are paid about 40% below what is needed for a one-bedroom apartment here working for the County of Orange, and that is ridiculous, folks. We're talking about community health assistants, financial counselors, health education assistants, social worker assistants, pest control techs. We need to make this right because your workers should be able to afford to live where they're working. They should be able to live and enjoy the County of Orange, such as you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Byron Lopez. I currently live in Santa Ana, here representing Democratic Social America, here to help out our homeless comrades. Evictions and foreclosures are directly related to homelessness. In September 2016, there were 3,100 homes in foreclosure in Orange County. Ellen Cavalli is 73 years old and got forced out of her home in 2009 during the foreclosure crisis. She has been homeless ever since and has been on the list for affordable housing since 2012. But there is no affordable housing. That's why we are here today to insist that the county take action and put money to make it happen. Each year, an average of 6,400 families are ordered by the courts to be evicted, enforced by sheriff deputies, or as I personally call them, the attack dogs of capitalism. Sheriff deputies throughout Southern California conducted at least 260,000 evictions during the past decade. Too many of these people, like Ellen, end up homeless. In evictions, people lose not only their apartments, but frequently their possessions, which may be piled on the street. Children are often forced from their schools and away from their friends and support systems as parents move and move again. This is a toll on children and can lead to added costs in terms of mental health and worse. We know that between 2005 and 2010, suicide attributed to evictions and foreclosures doubled across the county. It is very destabilizing. Evictions tear at the fabric of a community, and the effects of it can ripple across the entire neighborhood and community. The time is now for action to get housing for people experiencing homeless.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next three speakers are Teresa Smith, Toby Campbell, and Harry Langenbacher.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Robbins, and I am a resident from Anaheim. This year, the county's budget is flush with money. There's $100 million more in discretionary funding than there was just 2 years ago, and there's $50 million more than there was last year. The numbers are huge. The total budget is $6.2 billion. Nearly $800 million of that is unrestricted funds that can be spent at the discretion of the County Board of Supervisors. What could the extra $50 million do for the homeless people? A report last year showed that $55 million would be almost enough to house all of the homeless people in Orange County. $50 million is only 6% of your discretionary funds. So the money is there, the solution is within reach, it just takes the political will to do something about it. You approved a 10-year plan to end homelessness that calls for affordable housing and permanent supportive housing as an immediate response to the people's needs. Please keep your promise, do the right thing, and fund your own plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Teresa Smith, and I'm a resident of Placentia. We need money for housing and services, not jails, repression, and scandals. As shown in this graph, you just keep pouring more money into the DA's office and the Sheriff's Department and cutting funding for services that help our neediest residents. Look at this graph. Funding for the DA's office went up by $20 million, while social services were cut by $20 million. Those aren't the people's priorities. The numbers show that the county board continues to pour money into the district attorney and sheriff while starving social services. Over the last 2 years, the county has increased funds for the district attorney by $10 million and more than $10 million for the sheriff, while adding less than $1 million for social services, less than $1 million for health care, and less than $1 million for the public defender. Let's be clear. Part of that money goes to the sheriffs is used to take the few belongings of homeless people, dump them in the trash, threaten homeless people, and ticket them in a process that criminalizes people just for being homeless. They are not out there increasing the safety or security of the people, but just the opposite. This turns the people's priorities on their head. Why should the scandal-ridden district attorney and sheriff get any more money? Our security is not enhanced by the illegal actions of the DA or the sheriff's collaboration with ICE and notorious illegal actions by her department reported on these chambers and elsewhere. Isn't it time you started making housing, health care, and social services the priority? The money in the budget is to do the right thing for the community, so we hope that you do the right thing.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is Pastor Toby Campbell. Just as an aside, my yearly income is just over $6,000. I'm getting the same amount in SSI and SDI that I was getting in 1987. We need money for housing and health care, not jails, repression, and scandals. In the space of just 8 years, the healthcare agency was cut by over $32 million, while funds for the district attorney were increased by nearly $30 million. The sheriff got a 61% increase, or $45.7 million. It is time to turn this around. The people need healthcare and housing. Stop lavishing funds on the scandalous district attorney and sheriff and start providing the services people need. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next three speakers are Angelica Sani, Jordan Hoiberg, and Laura Robbins.
Madam Chairwoman, I am Harry Longenbacher, a constituent of Mr. Sean Nelson, supervisor representing the 4th District. My concern today is that the trend in the county budget priorities needs to be reversed. Provide funding to address our crisis in homelessness. The budget includes funds from the federal and state governments, but to see the trend in budgeting priorities of the board, we have to look at the net county cost. Over the past 17 years, the county has increased the percentage of funds given to the sheriff and DA under public protection while decreasing the percentage going to community services, infrastructure, and environment. In the meantime, homelessness has steadily increased until we arrive at the crisis we have today. In order to turn around the rising flood of homelessness, you need to turn around your priorities. This will benefit our most vulnerable and needy citizens as well as all of our taxpayers. I have here 59 letters for you, signed by myself and my fellow congregants of the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Fullerton. To paraphrase the letter, in 2010, the board approved a 10-year plan aiming to end homelessness through the Housing First model. Unfortunately, the plan is not working because you have committed no county resources to its implementation. Instead of housing first, housing is your last priority. As a Unitarian Universalist, I stand on the side of love with those who are most vulnerable among us. Our principles assert the inherent worth and dignity of every person, including those who are unable to provide themselves with a home. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi there. My name is Angelica Sani, and I live in District 2. The county administers housing programs that are nearly totally funded by the federal and state government. The amount of actual county money in this effort is negligible. The Orange County Housing Authority manages vouchers given to people who meet strict eligibility criteria so that they can get housing. This is known as Section 8 program. Federal funding administered by the county pays for 25,000 people each month to get rental assistance. It may seem like a lot, but it's not nearly enough. The crisis in Orange County is so large that an estimated 81,088 households are on waiting lists for rental assistance in Orange County. The lists are closed, so countless others are also waiting. There's virtually no available affordable housing in Orange County, leaving many people homeless. Further, there is a huge need for permanent supportive housing for people experiencing homelessness with mental and physical disabilities. This is a need clearly recognized by county officials responsible for housing programs. But there is virtually no available permanent supportive housing in Orange County, so many people with disabilities remain homeless for years and even decades. The General Relief Program gives tiny amounts of cash to the homeless. In the 3 years from 2012 to 2015, the caseload increased by 105%. The staff and all of the wraparound services needed for the homeless were not increased at the same rate. The homeless crisis will not change with small programs and small vision, particularly as the homeless population is vastly expanding. We need bold action with real solutions based on the fact that housing is the solution to homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Jordan Hoiberg. I'm a resident of Newport Beach. Since 2008, the state has provided the county with Mental Health Services Act housing funds. The county has failed to use these funds effectively. They got nearly $35 million, but created only 587 housing units. San Diego got just $600,000 more, but created nearly twice as many units. San Bernardino got $14 million less than Orange County, but produced 30% more housing. Riverside also got $14 million less and produced more. This is a crime. So many homeless people with mental health problems are suffering and dying on the streets while the county is given millions for their housing, yet fails them. Even worse, in addition to that money, the county gets a total of over $160 million a year, or so $160 million from the state in Mental Health Services Act funds and appears to not spend what it gets for the mentally ill, particularly those on the edge of homelessness or actually on the street. Despite a 2015 expose by the Voice of OC and a 2014-2015 grand jury report slamming the county for the lack of psychiatric beds, less than half than that required, the county continues to fail those with mental illness, especially the homeless mentally ill. Last year, the county had perhaps $12 million unspent, a 68% increase over the year before. Let's open the books and have a full accounting of this. Regardless of how many millions are hanging around unspent, hidden in a mountain of jargon and figures, it is clear that there is $19 million more this year, all state funds for a total of $186 million in Mental Health Act funds. There's money there for you to do the right thing with. Do it.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
The next three speakers will be Tim Houchin, Michael Robbins, and Cynthia Sanchez.
Hi, my name's Laura Robbins. Because of the inclusion of federal and state funds in the county budget, someone could get the mistaken idea that the county was highly invested in solutions with its own funds. That is not true. Joining with several cities to create the bridges at Kramer Shelter was a good step, but only helps 100 people this year and a total of 200 when it is finished next year. The homeless population is in the tens of thousands by many estimates. At least 4,792 were counted on one day in January, more than half of whom were living without any shelter. County press releases following the count were designed with maximum PR spin and little truth. They praised themselves for the multi-service center in Anaheim and the courtyard shelter in downtown Santa Ana. But none of these projects provide housing to end homelessness. The courtyard is not housing, it's an old parking lot, and it's only moved people from one side of the street to another. The multi-service center is a temporary shelter. The county's reaction to the point-in-time count, the report of increased homelessness, was to say that they are starting a $33 million effort for homeless people treated in emergency rooms. Sounds good, but only a tiny fraction of the money comes from the county. The bulk is federal, state, and tobacco settlement money. And the money is not for care, but to get people off of services that are billable to Medi-Cal. It's time to be open, honest, and bold, and definitely about the people. It's time that you put county resources into creating the real solution to homelessness, and that is affordable housing and permanent supportive housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Supervisors. I'm Tim Houchin from Anaheim. You can say I'm a man with a plan. Actually, it's your plan. It's the 10-year plan to end homelessness adopted by the Board of Supervisors in 2010. This copy says 2012. They tell me it was adopted in 2010, but it'll tell you within the first couple of paragraphs it was actually began in 2008. The plan, I like the mission statement. It says effectively end homelessness in Orange County over the next decade. So that's what, about 3 years? 3 years left if you count from 2010. It also mentions in the end of the plan that the core values are to preserve human dignity and all people are worthy of respect, mercy, and kindness. Also mentions that the county will reflect compassion, safe housing, sanitary housing for everyone, and in a timely manner. So this is something that does recommend urgency, and we haven't seen much of that. It also says that a principle that anything worth doing is only worth doing with the intent to succeed. Now, we're at a crisis here, at a pivotal point. This was a promise to homeless people. It was a promise to me when I got into permanent supportive housing, ended my homelessness. It's a promise to the people that live in Orange County, the taxpayers, the people that live in the communities. It's a promise to them that they won't have to deal with homelessness any longer as well. I want the supervisors to please execute the 10-year plan. We don't need any new system of care that you're talking about in your budget. No system of care. This is your system of care. Please execute 10-year plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, BOS members. My name is Mike Robbins, and I know you guys, I don't know how this happened. This is way out of control. I have no idea where we're going with this. Housing is the only real solution to homelessness. The county has the funds and needs to create a housing trust fund and, of course, fund it. The UCI study showed that it costs us $300 million to leave them on the street. That's my money, that's your money, that's our insurance payments, that's everything we do. So something's wrong here, we have to fix it. If we spend the money on housing, it would cost us all less and solve the crisis as you see it's happening on the street now. Right now, you're spending none of the BOS budget to end homelessness, which is the only real solution. The problem is growing exponentially, as you know, and it's going to go out of control. Something they mentioned is let's insist on the Fairview Development Center in Costa Mesa for housing, and I think that might be a great idea, a part of it anyway. But right now, as I said before, we have to provide clean water, as you guys are leaning towards, and safe sanitation facilities for all. That's basic human dignity and human rights. It's not a solution. The county must invest in housing first. Do the right thing. Set up housing trust fund now. Put up the funds now and work to end homelessness for good. Let's talk about real solutions. Let's put it in the budget. Let's put it in now. Let's do something. This is too long now. And I know you guys have a plan. There's got to be a plan. And we've got to take care of it, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next three speakers are Heidi Zimmerman, R. Joshua Collins, and Joshua Collins.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Cynthia Sanchez, and I'm a community organizer with OCO. As they say, it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a village and a community working together to create the life that we all need. But it also takes leadership and organization. It takes a vision, and it takes a plan. You have the responsibility. You have a 10-year plan to end homelessness that stakeholders developed in the beginning of 2007. That was 10 years ago. A commission to end homelessness was formed during that time as well. The first report was received by the board in January of 2012. It has a timetable that calls for major action to get affordable housing over the last 2 years. But you have not funded, staffed, or pushed your plan to end homelessness through housing. Your plan was a fixture to refer to, but now we have a housing and homelessness crisis that demands immediate action. Dozens of homeless people have died on the streets in the last year, while the board has failed to commit significant county funds to housing. How many more people will die this year while they wait for housing? Now, the current budget proposal has no funds for permanent affordable housing to end homelessness. We have shown here through our presentation that the majority of Orange County is impacted by homelessness. More importantly, we have shown that hundreds of thousands of people are only a paycheck or two away from homelessness themselves. People are choosing between food and medicine and housing. That is a crime in this county of such great wealth. The people here are rising with one great voice and one great demand. We need affordable and permanent supportive housing. Use your discretionary funding, which you control, and make sure that you set up a fully funded housing trust fund that will end homelessness and put a lot of people in a safe and better place. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
I'm Heidi Zimmerman, founder of Oma's Angel Foundation. I want you to look what you're doing with your money. While I honor all the sheriffs, I come from a military family and law enforcement. This has happened under your watch. Look closely here. This is where your county employees are taking belongs. This include, I was there. You took their medicine, 6 months of insulin. You took their birth certificates. You took their IDs. You took their pictures, their family pictures that could not be replaced. This happened under your watch. You are violating the Constitution. These are not the characteristics we want in a judge. You violated the Constitution. How can we trust you as a judge? The next picture, I want to warn you, some of my pictures are graphic, but these are the things while I walk around Anaheim. I don't know where you live, but I find dead bodies in Anaheim when I walk. This woman here is paralyzed. She cannot get out of her chair. Her friends take her out of her chair at night and lay her down and cover her with a tarp because it's raining. There's several graphic pictures here. This man was on the street for 20 years. I want you to look at that bone that's sticking out of his body. This is what happens when you don't help people. It's a lot. This is my friend who I found dead. This is our beloved mayor of the Riverbed. We miss you, Dougie. We miss you, Barry. We miss you, Andrew. I find dead people all the time. I find them when I walk on the streets. You have the money to solve this problem. Stop killing people. Take care of my friends. Help me take care of them. I beg of you, I don't want to find dead people. We've got people with 3 kids in their cars. What is wrong with you? Stop being isolated in your ivory towers and take care of the humans. Stop taking the corrupt money and only taking care of business. Take care of humans.
Next speaker, please.
Hello. I also want to agree with Heidi, of course. I'm the founder of the Facebook group Homeless Advocates for Christ. I spent over 10 years on the streets myself as part of my ministry and seen a lot of the arrests and harassment of the homeless. But this is one question I have for you. Why is it that a convicted rapist or murderer or even a thief is given housing by the state or the city that they're in, right? They're given food, showers, all that, right? Even though they're convicted criminal. But we have people on the streets, like this person here, that's disabled in a wheelchair that doesn't have a right to housing. Does that make any sense? Think about that. You know, we have a big problem with the corporate greed, I think is what it is. You know, it's a crisis. They say it's a homeless crisis. I see also it's a corporate greed crisis. We have outsourcing of jobs. We have child slave labor in other countries. You know, people are buying products that they, you know, really should be boycotting some of these companies that are abusing the system. And these people will kill for money. These corporations will kill for money. They don't care about clean water for everyone. They don't care about housing for everybody. So that's what you guys are there for, though. You're there to protect people, to provide for them, you know, the right guidance, and as well as, if you can, provision for housing. Now, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, also Article 25, says that housing is a right for all. That's from the UN, and the U.S. actually signed on to that, saying housing is a right for all. So the county could be a great leader in making that happen. Housing First also works. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. They actually had Housing First, of course, in Utah, and it's very successful. Over 90% of the homeless are off the street now. So, you know, don't reinvent the wheel. Just go to Utah and talk to them and say, hey, what can we do to do what you did? You know, it's all right there for you. And you'll protect the taxpayers. You know, permanent housing is a solution. We have 6 empty homes for every homeless person, as one statistics I've seen in America. That's a shame. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next 3 speakers are Jay Torres, Michael Klobnikin, and Steve Rocco.
Who's the first one?
Jay Torres, Michael Klobnikin, and Steve Rocco.
I think.
The $1.5 million of the DA Real Estate Fraud Protection Fund needs to be transferred over to a housing fund, because that $1.5 million given to the DA is a cover-up real estate fraud by the public guardian. And shame on this board. The first thing out of this board, you got a room full of people that want to speak 3 minutes to make their voices heard. And what do you guys do? Well, we're well within the law to reduce it to 2 minutes. You will have a special meeting for these professors to pontificate for 5 hours. Where do we go from here? But when people like the leadership of Joshua and Janine and Lou Noble ignored all this time, they finally get the people, and what do? Well, you could only speak 2 minutes. Well, let's go back and talk about the law. On 11/8, this meeting's illegal. This guy was doing his nails. You guys removed the public from addressing public comments illegally. You didn't disclose it on the staff report. You didn't have a 4/5 vote. You didn't move in second. You did it illegally to silence. And shame on this board. We're talking about the budget. How in the Sam Hill can I talk about the budget when your staff hasn't even done the PowerPoint? What am I going to talk about? Last year's budget? No, it's supposed to be called by the clerk. Then it's supposed to do the PowerPoint, address it. Then you go, gee, is there any questions? Do you want to challenge what you see? This is chaos. And shame on you. These people come, high school kids come up here to speak their voice. Well, you could only speak 2 minutes. How about speaking 4 minutes? You could break the law and say, well, we could only speak 2. Give them 4 minutes. Have a special blanket meeting for the homeless housing. That $1.5 million for the DA real estate fraud needs to be done for a trust fund, as that was suggested, articulated by these speakers, for a housing fund. Or have a special meeting for these people to take time in their schedule.
Mr. Next speaker, please.
Hard rain is going to fall.
See you, Mr. Kemp. Next speaker, please.
The next 3 speakers will be Build Futures, David
Mr. Kim,
Manjikia, and Ahmad Sanadi.
We have all the budget items on the website, right?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Steve Rocco. I represent the Orange County Organized Crime Watch, registered in Sacramento. You're my job. A lot of naive people think that they're going to get something out of you. I've run for Doe's seat twice. The first time I got 26%, and the last time I got almost 9,000. We went through a farce last summer when we went to court, me and the Board of Supervisors and the registrar. They wanted to take some truth out of my argument against Measure S in Orange. Well, we didn't know that Deborah Pauly was being blackmailed by Rackauckus. She was already on a DUI, and she got arrested herself again at the International Street Fair. So they blackmailed her into filing these further proceedings. Surprise, I won everything. I was the only one who wasn't denied. So 2 sentences were taken out of the Measure S argument. The rebuttal was totally taken out, which is organized crime, which is you. Hi, Leon. By the way, let me tell you something. I had a recall against Rackauckus, and issue number 1 is murder. He's come inside my home over half a dozen times without a search warrant, with a public administrator, a crime against all of us when you have the public administrator and the DA as one job. He has murdered my family. I always include a homeless person when I run for office in the nomination signature. Good old Todd Spitzer over there is his #1 man. They're not enemies. And this farce about informants, give me a break. It's a lie. The first time I was ever in the newspaper, a half-page article, and this was before I won an election. It's a lie. There is no informant scandal except the one you created. The only real issue is that you're killers, and you're the reason people are homeless. You are not the solution to anything. You are the problem to everything.
Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Jennifer, and I'm here representing Build Futures. We're a nonprofit organization that assists homeless young adults ages 18 to 24. We provide case management, rapid rehousing, and job search support. I wanted to add comment today in support of mental health services and the Community Opportunity Fund. We see firsthand in our organization the effects of mental illness on the young homeless people that we serve. It has a crippling effect on their ability to become self-sufficient. Excuse me. Last year, we housed 125 individuals. Of those, 52% had a mental health condition. And of that 125, 35% were we considered severe. From our experience with these individuals, there's a lack of prompt care through the Orange County Health Services. It's often a 2 to 3 month wait for services, either psychiatric or medication needed. And let's see, through the RFA process, this would help put funds back into the community, and it would greatly help the kids that we serve. So I thank you for the opportunity to address you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is David Manjikian, and I'm an attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Orange County. We hold weekly legal clinics at the courtyard where we assist the county's homeless population with their legal issues. People living in the courtyard have many complaints about the conditions of the courtyard, the lack of affordable housing, lack of services, and the disappearance of Section 8 housing in the county. However, those who do not live in the courtyard, either because it's too restrictive or because there's no room, have one complaint that overshadows everything else. The Santa Ana Police Department is consistently harassing, pressuring, and ticketing the homeless population in Santa Ana. Most homeless individuals outside the county now reside within a small square of space near the courthouse. The Santa Ana Police have forced the homeless population to condense into a small and packed area. It's unsanitary and inhospitable slum. But no one dares occupy space outside the area for fear of being arrested and their belongings immediately impounded. The Santa Ana police are also ticketing homeless individuals with increased frequency. These tickets serve no purpose other than to harass the population and have no result other than to perpetuate the cycle of homelessness. One client who we spoke with just last week presented us with 3 separate tickets for camping and property storage, crimes that apply to every single unsheltered homeless individual in the county. She received these tickets on 3 separate occasions in the middle of the night while her possessions were being discarded by the police. It's not just the Santa Ana police that harass homeless individuals in the hope of driving them away. This is an issue that plagues the entire county. But the solution to end homelessness isn't to move them somewhere else. The only way to address this issue is to invest in affordable housing for the extremely low-income individuals in this county. The stability of long-term permanent housing will allow the residents of this county to gain meaningful education and employment, thus improving their condition and allowing the growing cycle of homelessness to reverse. More than any Band-Aid, this county needs more low-income housing for its residents. Please consider establishing a housing trust fund so that this county may have a permanent source of funding for supportive housing.
Thank you. Next speaker,
Thank
please.
After Ahmad Sanadi, the next 3 speakers are Sarah Mary Wallace, Raymond Hartwell, and it looks like Wes Jones.
Okay. Next. Madam Clerk, could you call other names?
The next 3 speakers would be Patricia Cortez, Barbara Farrell, and Michael Sanchez.
My name is Wes Jones. I live in District 4, resident of Anaheim, 30 years. First, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak. In my opinion, a society should not be judged by its wealth, its buildings, its monuments, its art, but how we treat the least among us. In the County of Orange, we have failed our homeless population. We need supportive housing. Housing First is, by all experts, the approved way to go. Historically, the state, find where I am here, the state and federal government have provided funds needed for low-cost housing and permanent supportive housing. Now the burden has been shifted to local government. Due to the tax structure of Orange County, cities are unable to fund our current housing needs, so the cost of the housing now falls on the County of Orange. The cavalry with state money is not coming. The current 8 to 10 year wait for permanent housing will, according to the UCI study on homelessness, cost the county considerably more more money in areas such as social services, healthcare, law enforcement than permanent supportive housing would. The county's new full-service Kramer shelter will not work without supportive housing. The people will just languish. There's no exit.
Your time is up. Could you just summarize it, please?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Honorable Supervisors, good morning. I'm Barbara Farrell. I live in Los Alamitos. I relocated here about 6-7 years ago, and I was very shocked to see that your homeless program is going in the wrong direction, that there are more homeless people going on and on. I became associated, well, I donated and did some services for Build Futures, which serves 18 to 25-year-olds. Coming from the Bay Area, I said, oh, well, this is foster children with no place to go, or runaways, like it is in San Francisco. No, your problem is intergenerational. Their children, 18 to 25-year-olds, were raised homeless. So this is a situation that you have. This is why it is so critical to address it now. You have a plan, but a plan with no funding is a dream. And we don't organize our relationships that way in government. I want you to look at this as an urgent issue that has to be addressed now. Your 10-year plan is almost up, and no funding. Everybody knows housing first works. Children who are raised homeless have no future. And so I'm asking you respectfully to use your plan, fund your plan, and also I would like to see that your police department understand and get trained on working with mental health issues, because it's for their own safety as well as the safety of the public. That training is essential. It's practiced, it's proven. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. And Madam Clerk, could you call 3 more names?
The next 3 speakers will be Anthony Arredondo, Luis Garcia, and Kiana Woods.
Hello, my name is Michael Sanchez. I am a student, junior student from Anaheim High School. I've come here to talk about a problem, which is homelessness, has become a huge issue here in Orange County. And it impacts all of us, not just by firing teachers from schools because there's not enough students, or by hurting families and making them not have a home and a place to live. Many people think that this is one of the happiest places on earth due to the huge shadow created by things such as the Angel Stadium and Disneyland. But if you turn the lights on and brighten that shadow, you can see that what has been done. Homelessness, like homeless people walking around the streets and turning people's heads, making them say, oh, that's too bad. This leaves a bad reputation in the people that witness, and people. This leaves a bad reputation in the people who witness it when they visit places such as Honda Center, which is near the riverbed, and for the first time. No one would want to live here if they realize that there is a huge chance of becoming homelessness sooner or later. I want you to help our reputation of Orange County by helping end homelessness by having housing fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Anthony Arredondo. I'm also a student from Anaheim High School. I'm a junior, and I'm here because I'm a concerned citizen, and I'm trying to be an activist. And I had an experience myself with being homeless. I lived in a car for 2 years, and what I can agree with, what I think we can all agree with, is that an 8-year-old should probably worry about school and not what they have to steal to provide for their family. We could save lives by using money to aid housing. Families are torn apart due to the fact that we have to survive, and that can cause separation. There shouldn't be segregation in our lifestyles. We see people as rich, poor, or homeless, and we somehow induce fear by walking next to a homeless person, but we should try to help him. Like, we're all human. Kids are vulnerable. As soon as you become homeless, we become vulnerable to all the bad things in this world, and we don't really have a shield to defend ourselves from what's right or wrong. And we don't deserve to be let out in a world where we go through the hardships. As a human being, we should all try to enjoy life, not scrape through it. That's surprisingly, due to the housing and all that stuff, the thing that affects me the most now is that I might lose my best friend since she might move to Mexico, and she's practically all I have now. So please just aid housing.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, I'm Luis Garcia. I'm a student from Anaheim High School. We have a problem here in Orange County, which is there's rampant homelessness, and there's a very high rent that's causing a lot of people to become homeless themselves. It is shown that 26% of the homeless population is taking legal and illegal drugs in a bad way. This causes crime to rise, both gang and drug crime, which causes the Orange County to look bad and causes tourists from other places to stop going here in fear and disgust of the situation that Anaheim is in. This can all be solved very easily with affordable housing. With affordable housing, the people are happy. And when the people are happy, they support officials, which causes less crime and less anger and more corruption. More cooperation with you guys. And okay, all right, which means that the reputation of Orange County will rise, and people will be happy, and there will be more people paying taxes, which means more money to you guys, which can be used for better purposes. And one thing I've been seeing from the board is that they're spending a lot of money on the police department of the county. This could be the money should have been used for housing and to stop homelessness, and if you guys did that at first, then you wouldn't have to spend money on the homeless and on the police, because there wouldn't be a lot of crime.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Next three speakers, please.
The next three speakers will be Mervette, Sharon Portman, and Katrina Bessem.
Good morning. My name is Kiana Woods, and I am with the Legal Aid Society of Orange County. I just wanted to speak briefly about a couple of things I've noticed in doing community outreach in the area. There are a number of people who, although they have the option of possibly going to this makeshift shelter, if they ever get kicked out, another option would be an area by the flags, where the flags are in a square. But even then, there's no option. And I just would like to say that there is a plan. However, there is no plan in action. When the money is there, but it's not being used to budget for housing, people with disabilities or people with kids, and it's disheartening. It's hard to see a society of people telling another group of people that, you're part of our society, but we refuse to budget and take care of you in the way that we take care of the rest of our society. It's dehumanizing, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. My name is Mervette Judah, and I'm with the Arab American Civic Council.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Today, first of all, I would like to say that I'm honored to sit in a room full of people, especially the youth, that actually care to solve the homelessness problem. And I applaud all of them. God bless you all. Homelessness is our problem, city, county, state, and nationwide. As I fast this month of Ramadan, where I'm supposed to empathize with those that are less fortunate than me, I'm reminded of a verse in the Quran that states that we should not go to bed knowing someone has an empty stomach or has no bed to sleep in. And I was brokenhearted by hearing some of the stories of the youth here today. What I find perplexing is how easy it is for our OC, supervisors or otherwise, to do just that as homelessness continues to rise with no end in sight, proposing solutions that tackle the symptoms and not the actual problem. We're working backwards, people. We can appreciate the pilot program proposed by the supervisors. However, how does that end homelessness? Providing services to the displaced is just flowering up a terrible problem. It's covering up the stink. What our displaced citizens need is a home to live in. Housing is a human right, not a privilege. We are responsible for those individuals. I applaud the money that's been put in by the state of California in order to establish permanent housing. However, that does not even create a dent in our homelessness issue. Our county needs to take responsibility and put money into housing the homeless and in controlling the insane rental rates in the OC. This is a devastating fact, and especially here in the OCU, where homelessness is at an all-time high due to our inaction, where people are living in parks, cars, freeway ramps, riverbeds, benches, train stations, streets. I have 3 little children that are all saying, Mama, why are they here? Mama, why are they there? Mama, why are they here? This is not normal. I don't even know how to explain this to them. This is not my living normal when I was a child. Why are our children seeing
Your time is up.
It's unacceptable. Please do something about it. Thank you. A problem that we ignore comes knocking at our door. Please fund the homeless now.
Next speaker, please.
The next 3 speakers will be Lily Graham, Julie Crandall, and Sarah Gregory.
Good morning. My name is Lily Graham, and I'm an attorney with Legal Aid Society of Orange County. I'm here, similar to a lot of the housing advocates, asking that you fund affordable housing in Orange County. We're asking for a housing trust fund where there's a commitment of permanent funding for affordable housing to be developed. The county has for years relied on just federal funding to be able to subsidize the affordable housing here in Orange County, and that's been inadequate. On Section 8 in Orange County, the wait list was open in 2012. In 2 weeks, it filled up to a list of 10,000 people, and it takes 10 years to make a voucher available for you. What we're finding at Legal Aid now is people who are lucky enough to get a voucher are not able to actually use that voucher. It's been equated to something like a lottery ticket that you can't cash in. We're starting to see people who max out on the 6-month extension, and they're not able to use that voucher to be able to find affordable housing. They lose it, and we found people who formerly had vouchers at the riverbed or at our other homeless outreach. It's just not enough, the federal funding. So we're asking that you commit some of the budget to a housing trust fund that can fund affordable housing here, which is much needed in Orange County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, and thank you for taking comment this morning. My name is Sarah Gregory. I'm also an attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Orange County. I'm speaking today on behalf of our extremely low-income homeless clients. The only solution to the problem of homelessness in Orange County is investment in affordable housing. Short-term actions such as clearing encampments and seizing personal property are not only ineffective, they actually exacerbate homelessness by making it even more difficult to find shelter and permanent housing. For example, when a homeless individual has his cell phone seized, he cannot call potential employers. When a homeless individual has her medication seized, she could face negative health consequences that make it difficult to find housing. When an individual has his clothing or personal belongings seized, he must spend time replacing those items instead of seeking the support he needs to find shelter. We call on the county to invest money in affordable housing, particularly for those extremely low-income residents of Orange County. And specifically, we call on the county today to create a housing trust fund to provide a permanent source of funding for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, and 3 more speakers, please.
The next 3 speakers will be Jackie Cordova, Carla Westphal, and Jose Trinidad Casaneda.
Hello, my name is Julie Crandall, and I'm also with the Legal Aid Society of Orange County as a paralegal. Ms. Bartlett is I'm in your district. I'm a mother of 2 daughters. They're grown now, and they're about to finish college. I think I'm scared right now because the empty nest syndrome seems like a myth with what I'm hearing today. Some of my sweetest and most tender moments with my daughters is the bedtime ritual we went through every single night. We read a book, we sang a song, we had prayers, and they were tucked in. And of course, the obligatory, I'd like a glass of water. 4 weeks ago, my team and I met at a park in Orange County. It was by chance that we met this family. As we walked through the park, a man came up to us and asked us who we were and if we could help. He wasn't even sure what we needed, but he must have been so desperate to ask 3 perfect strangers for help. He was so trusting. You see, for the past week, him and his wife had been tucking their 2-year-old son in between them on a cardboard pallet under an assortment of misshapen blankets with threadbare sheets over their heads. Quite the contrast to my daughters, who have their own room, soft, cozy beds every night, and a sturdy roof over their head. They tucked him in between them to shelter him from what was going on around him. They had no book to read, no toys to play with. They covered him so he would not see the actions that were going on around him from the other homeless individuals that surrounded their makeshift home. Our team went into action. We gathered clothes, shoes, and a stroller for the child and brought them to the family the next day. This time the mother reached out to me and said, "Please get us out of here. Another family had their children taken away from them last night, and we cannot lose each other." I took them to a church in Buena Park, where they got shelter for 1 night. We called every shelter and every contact we have. We tried to find them a safe place. We work with the Buena Park Police Department. We called 211 and VIE contacts. The dad is a veteran. I was very bold and called Susan Price on her back line. Jim Wheeler called me and worked with his connections at his disposal. It took a week to get them into a shelter, a week where they bounced around with a 2-year-old. During this time, the mother was hospitalized for 3 days. She was not taking care of herself. She has severe asthma.
Your time is up. Could you just sum up, please?
Sure, thank you. You have 3 years left to end your homeless plan. I urge you to use the funds to create a housing trust fund and get some permanent supportive housing and permanent supportive housing for this family.
Next speaker, please.
Hello, I'm Jackie Cordova, community member from Santa Ana. The common denominator here is the 5 of you choosing over and over blatantly to not release the funds for the solutions that need to be implemented in our county. You will be investigated for crimes against humanity, for the deaths of our fellow human beings. You guys could have solved this a long time ago. We want our funds released immediately to fund the solutions that are waiting to help our fellow brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. And can you call 3 more, please?
Hi, my name is Carla Westphal. I'm a community member from Mission Viejo. Your jobs as my representative is to allocate my tax dollars appropriately for my community. And the community is the people, not just the privileged, all the people. When you fund prisons, you say it's to make our community safer. But when you fail to fund housing, you do the exact opposite for those members of our community who don't have homes. You make their lives less safe. You have a plan. But a plan without funding is an excuse to pretend that you care when you really don't. I urge you to look around you today and see that your constituents do really care. And we ask you to take our tax dollars and invest them in our community, invest in a housing fund to end the homeless problem. Thank you.
The next speaker, please.
The next three speakers after Jose are Alexis Lopez, Luis, and Cesar Cover. I'm gonna mess your name up, Caesar. Caesar.
I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are on stolen native land. My name is Jose Trinidad Castaneda. I'm a Fullerton Parks and Recreation Commissioner. I don't want to have to be repetitive here, but you've heard the overwhelming amount of evidence. You've heard very powerful stories and narratives from people experiencing homelessness at every level in Orange County. And I urge you to reflect beyond this meeting on governing with compassion, remembering that we are all human, and working together to fund housing to end homelessness. That is really the only solution. I could say more, but I'm sure that you've made your decision. Just remember, please govern with compassion. Otherwise, your legacy will be one of corruption, and we will get rid of you.
Next speaker, please.
Good morning to all the members of the board. My name is Alexis Rodrigo Lopez. I'm an activist and a current junior attending Anaheim High School. And I'm present here today because homelessness is an issue here in Orange County that has grown over the years. And for example, in the year of 2015, there was at least 15,000 people identified as homeless in Orange County. Even with an immense amount of homelessness, there is still little to no funding to fix this dilemma. You guys have lots of funding and decided to spend it elsewhere instead of this situation. Ask yourself this: how many times have you gone to a public park anywhere in Orange County and not see a single homeless person sleeping on a bench, sitting in misery, fighting for survival every day? None. This is because a public park is an option for those that are homeless because they have nowhere else to go. They stay in the restroom because that's the only shelter they're given, and for protection from the weather. They also sleep with large blankets outside even when it's raining. No one's there to help them out. No one is there to talk to them. They're given nothing. They have to fight for everyday life. And myself, I've been close to this situation when rent was really high, and I was in danger of just losing my house. And I had to remain strong because I have little brothers and they have to look up to me because I'm their inspiration, and they don't know how hard the world could be. But I ask you, the board of members, that you help support and provide permanent supportive housing for those that are homeless people fighting for survival each day. And a wise man once said, "Without action, you aren't going nowhere." This quote is said by Gandhi. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, board. My name is Luis, and I am currently a junior attending Anaheim High School, and I'm here to talk to you about the epidemic that is homelessness, more specifically on the trauma that a person who is homeless has to go through and able to survive in this county. A study done by the National Coalition for the Homeless says that 38% of these people who are homeless are dependent on alcohol, and 26% of these are dependent on other drugs. These homeless people, they don't want to do these drugs, but they have to suffer through this because they don't know anything else to do. They don't have other options and able to get, for example, rehab. Rehab itself can, for a 30-day program, can cost up to $20,000. And even though drug abuse is a very serious problem that these people have to go through, it's not even the worst yet. And within the last 12 years alone in this county, over 1,300 people had died, and half of those have been since 2013. It's time that this county creates permanent housing. This county has a budget of $6.2 billion and an extra $800 billion that you board members can put to use to help in homelessness. It's time right now, and I would like to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next three speakers, please.
After Caesar, the next two speakers are Morgan Dinges, Dwight Smith, and Eva Noriega.
Good morning, Supervisors. Cesar Covarrubias, Executive Director for the Kennedy Commission, organization that works on policy and advocacy for affordable housing development in Orange County. I want to commend the youth and the advocates for being so well informed about this issue, being so well informed about solutions about this issue. I think it's an opportunity for us to look at also other examples that have happened throughout our state. Last election, Alameda County put a bond up for roughly $500,000 for affordable housing and homelessness. The Santa Clara County, $960 million bond to address affordable housing and homelessness. I think it's an opportunity for this county to figure out that we need to put our resources to use. We need to commit this money to be able to leverage other funding sources available at the state level through No Place Like Home, through tax credits, even bonds that may be available. In addition to that, our housing funds and our housing vouchers. This is an opportunity for us to be leaders on this area, and I'd like you to please help us explore this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Morgan Dinges. I'm a resident of Santa Ana. I'd like to thank all the amazing advocates that have turned out today to support our homeless brothers and sisters. They've provided statistics and figures to highlight a disaster that longtime residents have watched unfold over the last several decades. I want to add my voice to those calling for you to create a housing trust and fund your 10-year plan and to cease your efforts to harass people experiencing homelessness. I grew up here and I've lived here my whole life. I've watched as these issues spiraled out of control while the county has done nothing. My friends and family and everyone I've spoken to in the county has this specter over their heads. As economic conditions continue to deteriorate, more and more people are struggling to make ends meet. And they see what awaits them out there should they have a sudden medical expense or lose their jobs. People on the streets lose hope, and really, who can blame them? There are so few resources for them to get out of homelessness, and the county seems to take every possible chance they find to harass them in an effort to drive them further into hiding. Once again, I want to add my voice to everybody, urging you to reverse decades of inaction and heed the call of these constituents to fund long-term solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name's Dwight Smith. I'm with the Orange County Catholic Worker. We've been involved in homeless intervention for about 30 years in the city of Santa Ana. Quickly, I am referring to not what boot to spend money on, but what boot you should take off the neck of the homeless, specifically in the courtyard. I addressed this board previously about 4 complaints, and a senior attorney from Mr. Page's office essentially validated all those allegations. In other words, there are people from Los Angeles street gangs with multiple felonies, people on work release, who are deciding the outcome of residents at the courtyard for Orange County residents. This is appalling to me. It's true that they just put a sink in, so for 6 months there was no running water. But there should have been running water from the start. You guys took the porta potties out of the Civic Center, I guess based on the assumption that the porta potties are now in the courtyard, but the courtyard is locked from 10 o'clock till 8 o'clock, and people still defecate during those hours. So now they just defecate on the ground like they did before you guys opened the courtyard. Second thing, a lot of people that go to the courtyard are turned away because it's full. You've exceeded fire marshal's guidelines, and I talked to people from the Midnight Mission, and they apparently don't understand fire marshal guidelines. They think that it only applies to the number of homeless. My new concern is that there's no reasonable expectation of privacy. Homeless people are not blind. You have 200 residents of Orange County that are watching what's going on in there. I was told that no one can take pictures. I don't know why. There's no reason. It's a public space. So what I'd like to say to you is that it's my allegation that the reason they can't take pictures is because the staff of criminals that you have put in place is stealing from them and harming them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
The next three speakers are Susan Mayer, Bright Ryan, and Madeline Andrens.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, my name is Eva Goodwin Noriega, and I am the older sister of a woman that was actually helped by one of the supervisors sitting in front of us. And what I'm asking you to think of is what you as supervisors can do to be like a family for members of our community who are homeless. My sister has paranoid schizophrenia. She has a big family, sisters and brother. My sister is also together enough, if she's on her meds, that she has been a presenter to NAMI. And she helps educate the persons who work with mentally ill people. She has a very good, heart-rending story of herself having been homeless and raped, etc. In order for her to get, she had housing, she has housing, but she lost it through a questionable complaint of another person who was on HUD housing, which apparently frequently happens in the community. And because she has worked with NAMI, she was able to get support from a lawyer who works with NAMI and came and spoke to you guys telling her story. And because of that, this particular supervisor was able to facilitate my sister's getting her housing, her HUD funding back. This only happened because my sister has a family that could move her out of the housing. We packed it all up. We then helped her find something temporary. Then we looked for housing and found how little was really available. And then by luck, because she got her HUD back, she was able to go back into the same place she had been in. So please treat the others as one member of you treated my sister, and treat the others like our family does.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is Susan Meyer. I'm from Costa Mesa. Is it possible for me to wait until the other supervisors return to their seats?
No.
I want to thank you, Chairwoman Steele, Supervisor Doe. You have looked at every speaker that's come up to this podium in the eye. Thank you so much. This is my first time here. I've never been compelled by a situation. I've grown up in the city of Orange, currently live in Costa Mesa, but I am compelled to be here today. Every day I drive by and I see these huge encampments of the homeless. I've never seen it like this before. Millions drive by every single day. I see it. You see it. Everyone in this room sees it. It's growing huge. You have a 10-year plan. Obviously, this plan is not working because the population of homeless is growing. Obviously, you're not putting enough money into the plan to make it work. You are, I am, everyone in this room here, all of the people in Orange County, we are all one surgery, one loss of job away from going bankrupt and becoming homeless. If you become bankrupt, you won't be able to help your parents. You won't be able to help your children. You won't be able to help yourself, and you may find yourself on the street. It's very real. I ask that you spend more money on the growing homeless issue in Orange County. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Madeline Andreas, and I am a student at the University of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. I am currently doing an internship at the Catholic Worker of Orange County, and I would just like to share some of the experiences that I've gained from the few weeks that I've been here. When I came here, I was not expecting to be shocked by the reality of the lack of bathroom facilities that the homeless at the riverbed and the Civic Center face every single day. After every trip to these locations, I found myself relieved to leave until I realized that these people still live here. It sounds strange, but I can leave, you can leave, but these people can't leave these situations. We can retreat into our comfortable lives, our own bathrooms, our own showers, but they can't. After talking to one homeless man about his experiences, he said something that really struck me. He said, our experience is already so miserable, and this lack of bathroom facilities just makes it more so. This is a basic human right to go to the bathroom in comfort and in safety, and yet there is a lack of human dignity that these people experience. They are not afforded this basic human right by this board and by this county. I urge you to consider putting restroom facilities at the riverbed and at the Civic Center in order to improve the quality of life and to restore the human dignity of this population of people. These are not people, they're not objects, they're not a problem to be solved. They deserve this because they are people. And I agree with the rest of the speakers here that affordable housing is the long-term solution for this issue. But I think providing bathroom facilities will alleviate at least some of the misery that these people experience on a daily basis. You are in a position where you can use your power and resources of this county to make life less miserable for this population. And the only question that you have to ask yourselves is why not? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next three speakers are Ozma Ahmed, Jane Rands, and Margaret Sharp. The next three speakers will be Jill Dominguez, Alice McCullough, and Joel Block.
Could you just come up and speak? Just give us your name and where you live.
Hi, my name is Margaret Sharp. I'm from Costa Mesa. I came in last Orange County Board of Supervisors meetings, and thank you for listening to me. So I won't repeat the same thing that I was pushing for last time. One thing that I'm interested in terms of everything is affordable housing. How do we get the money? But there's another issue that needs some help. I went to talk to a friend of mine, Vince, over at the building department right across the street, and he said that he's in the planning department, and he said that when new residential developments come up, 15% is supposed to be used for affordable housing. And some developers are choosing not to do that, but they have to pay a stiff penalty. So I want to make sure that the cities are doing their part, according to the California Building Code, of allotting that affordable housing and making sure that those funds are spent. Also, I'd like to see some overcount of the city councils. There are some people that are city council members that seem to be bought by developers and are not doing what they're supposed to be doing to providing affordable housing. And I think we need some oversight.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, good morning. My name is Asma Ahmed, and I am the Policy and Advocacy Coordinator for the Council on American Islamic Relations. You don't need the more than 60 speakers here today to tell you that homelessness is a major problem in our county. You just have to step outside and open your eyes to see the people living on the sidewalks right outside this building. You have said that you cannot afford to end homelessness or contribute your own county funding, but the truth is you cannot afford to ignore it. You are currently spending $300 million a year, according to a UCI cost study, on trying to manage homelessness, including crisis response, inpatient psychiatric care, emergency care, and hospitalization. You are spending law enforcement and criminal justice dollars on criminalizing homelessness when people have nowhere else to go. Meanwhile, people are literally growing old and dying on our streets. You have a humanitarian crisis on your hands and the means to end it. Your budget reflects your values, so prove to the residents of this county that you value the issue of homelessness by funding your 10-year plan to end homelessness. You have the power to end homelessness. Please recognize that and do something about it.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is Joel Block. I'm from Rossmore. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm going to talk about something else besides the very critical homeless problem. There's going to be an election in the county in 2018, and on your agenda, as it has been for a while, is a new voting process for the county that is a very fundamental change in the way we're going to vote in this county. What's on the table due to a change in the state law is a proposal to reduce the 1,100 polling places down to 150 voting centers. That's going to be accompanied by automatic mail ballot distribution. I don't think a lot of people in the county know about this. I've only seen a couple of articles in the OC Register and then one editorial this week in Voice of OC. Let me speed up. You must establish a process with the Postal Service regarding their receipt of when they receive a change of address for a voter. There's got to be some connection between their receipt of a change of address form and where you're going to be sending the ballot. Number two, you need to provide same-day voter registration, which is now mandatory in California, at all 150 voting centers. Failure to do that and only having one location for same-day voter registration is a failure of the intent of same-day voter registration. Finally, and I strongly believe when you're going to automatically send out a ballot to every voter, you need to have return prepaid postage for those mail ballots, so you don't have a lot of people either mailing in unstamped ballots or not sending them in at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is Jill Dominguez, and I reside in the city of Westminster. I am a native Orange Countyan. We are hard to come by. But I was born in the city of Westminster. I have 3 generations of my family working and residing in Supervisorial District 1. We are all property owners, small business owners, and very active voters. I am here today to speak in favor of funding the Orange County Human Relations Council. I met Rusty Kennedy in 1996 when I was a Coro Fellow. Rusty Kennedy and the Orange County Human Relations Council was and still is our community's calming voice, peaceful negotiator, and broker of understanding. When I met Rusty, I had spent the last 4 years working in the riot-ravaged areas of Los Angeles to rebuild the physical and psychological damage of the 1992 riots of the Rodney King incident. I had seen the worst of what can happen when communication breaks down between communities, the police, and the elected officials. To bring some perspective to my personal experience with racism in Westminster and what I experienced growing up. As most of you know, in the late 1970s, the county experienced a large influx of Vietnamese refugees, escaping the horrors of war and the loss of their homeland to communism. They were not welcomed with open arms. I remember as a teenager, when I would drive to my job at the Westminster Mall, 9 out of 10 times the sign that announced Little Saigon at the side of the freeway at the Beach Boulevard exit had been torn down or was vandalized. I went to college in LA and spent many years there. By 1999, I had moved back to Orange County. I chose Westminster as my home. One of the reasons I chose that was because of the vibrant entrepreneurial community that Little Saigon had revitalized in my hometown city. That same year, a shop owner had decided to hang a sign with the communist flag and Ho Chi Minh. Within days, tensions had escalated and the crowds grew to the thousands, lasting for a significant amount of time.
Can you summarize it,
yes.
please?
Because of Rusty Kennedy and the Orange County Human Relations, that did not turn into the riots of LA. I stand here today and encourage you to vote for the funding of the Orange County Human Relations Commission.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I'm Alice McCullough, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters and Sir Optimus International here in Orange County. But basically, most of the data that I had planned to repeat has been presented to you already, of course. But we just want to indicate our support for having a more comprehensive program for dealing with homelessness in Orange County. There really are three basic groups, as the first being those that have some type of mental problem from various sources, many from being in the military and being the people who represent us and who preserve our way of life. And secondly is family groups, and third is single people. And we need to develop the appropriate housing resources for each of those groups with the kind of support services that they need, whether it is physical and mental health resources, or whether with many of the single people, it is simply job training, or with the families, it's not only job training, but also family counseling types of resources. So we just want to support a comprehensive program that covers the different types of people who are involved with homelessness and responds with reasonable resources and assistance for each of those types of people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
The next three speakers will be Elias Seglin, Robert Seglin, and Shirley Nino.
Honorable Chair Lady Steele and Board of Supervisors and public. My name is Elias Seglin. I am the voice of my son, innocent autistic Nate, and the people. I am talking regarding public safety. Indeed, I am coming particularly and present my grievances cautiously for years. Almost each Board of Supervisors meeting, me, Robert, and Michael Klubnikin attending the meeting, religiously accurate. I do not ask to receive money, position, or special privileges. The only privilege we ask you to respect decency, our founding fathers' constitution, freedom, loving American spirit, and law of the land, in order to spare from the death sentence an innocent autistic person, the descendant of Holocaust survivor, Nate Seglin. He is not considering any longer as a human being, but a dumping ground for illegal profiteering from public funding. Nate was torn apart by corrupted judges Hubbard, corrupted, dishonest public defender Sharon Petrosina, with her public defender Bianchi, Hill, Guardian, Protective Social Services, and some law enforcement from the decent, innocent family. If you need the money, the public needs money for homeless. These people steal public money that would be returned to the homeless.
Next speaker, please.
Hello, Honorable Board of Supervisors, Robert Teglin, brother of Nate Teglin. As I've stated before, my brother Nate Teglin was removed illegally, kidnapped 3 times, and released by 3 different judges, 3 different writs of habeas corpus. And in contempt of that release, he was placed in a 903 South Harmon group home in Santa Ana. And as my father alluded to, the incentive, there's an estimated $50,000 a month in which the Regional Center for Orange County receives funding from the California Department of Developmental Services in order to hold him in the group home, and an estimated $25,000 profit is derived from the vendor of the Orange County Regional Center Group Home, Mr. Pena, and moreover, he's illegally confined. There's concealment of medical records, psychotropic abuse, and as my father alluded to, the public defender has been involved in cooperating instead of obtaining the medical records, in addition to cooperating with the denial of other things such as physical abuses, but the psychotropic abuse and the seizures and so forth, that has been concealed by the Public Defender's Office, denied by various agencies, including the social workers who are supposed to at least record allegations into records. So you have the denial and concealment of the records, and the dichotomy between how he was removed from the home, kidnapped 3 times, and the police were able to write a lot of stuff, and here where he's in a group home where he alleges seizures and so forth, and the abuse and so forth, and nevertheless, the agencies that are supposed to protect from adult abuse and so forth have not thus far done their duty. So I hope that he would be released and more money could be spent on things like homeless. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next 3 speakers will be Luis Gomez, Jay Torres, and Diana Hynek.
Hi, my name is Shirley Neno. I'm currently residing in La Habra, California. I come from the East Coast. I've been here for about 3 years, and I can't believe the homeless population that I witness here, as opposed to New York City, and the fact that the corruption here, it's very rampant. I couldn't find the figures for Anaheim City Council. Transparency didn't exist on their site. The 10-year plan mentions human dignity, maintaining human dignity more than once. I haven't witnessed any of that in my 3 years here. I have witnessed the most atrocious human conditions I've ever seen. A budget was allotted by you to increase the security for the people employed here. The people employed here aren't in danger. It's more the homeless people are in danger from you people. And the money that they're receiving, by the way, I might just run for sheriff, except I have a conscience. $1.3 million to increase the police at the Civic Center. But not enough money for a toilet. That's just outrageous. You don't give cold water on hot days. You close down Fullerton Armory with no notice on a cold and rainy night. These people, they have no place to go. You're closing businesses that said 24 hours, locking the doors, with the sign still saying lobby open 24 hours. You're making it impossible to be homeless. What are they supposed to do? You can't keep spending money on head counts because you shuffle them from town to town. I can give you. You don't need to count these people. You need to take care of them, help them. I'm just outraged. Disney, on the other hand, got
your time is up.
Yeah, well,
Could you just summarize it, please.
Okay, well, Disney is. They got subsidized by Anaheim for 866 rooms for the 4 Diamond hotels. A 20-year agreement. Disney doesn't need an incentive.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, I'm Joy Torres, and I want to thank you guys for taking your time and listening to all these comments. I will still talk about accountability. Where does the accountability end? We've lost so many in the last year, and especially here in our courtyard, we've had 3 in 3 months. The dangers that are coming and the voices that I hear from everybody coming to me going, Joy, you're on this, you're on that, what can you do to help? We do need rent control here in Orange County, especially with our mentally ill and especially with our vouchers that are going out. I mean, my rent, I'm on Section 8, and my rent went up another $100, and they just upped it in January, $50. So, I'm like going, when is my housing going to when am I going to lose my housing? When am I going to lose my stability? And I've lost it before when they closed down the asylums, and I lost it again when they closed down, interfaith shelters and places that would help us and would be supportive towards supportive living situations. So I'm grateful I have support today. But there's a lot of people that don't understand what supportive living is. We will spend and give somebody who's an addict 90 days in a treatment facility before we will give 90 days in a mental health facility. I've lost a lot of our board and cares. So a lot of our clients are now in our shelters. And the sad thing is how do we wrap around this? It's called accountability. Where does it start? It starts with the budgeting.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello. My name is Luis Gomez, and I work at the LGBT Center of Orange County here in Santa Ana. I wanted to thank, first of all these great speakers who have spoken before me and provided such great comments. I also want to thank you for allowing me to speak in front of you today. I'm personally a resident of Anaheim, and I am a college graduate with a wonderful full-time job that I love. Nevertheless, I still cannot afford my rent. I still have to have a second job to be able to pay for my bills. And unfortunately, because of that, grad school is out of my reach at this moment. I, like many of you, see many new housing developments being built throughout the county, and I see many of them, if not most of them, luxury apartments. And if not luxury apartments, definitely at a luxury rate. The housing crisis here in Orange County needs to be paid attention to. In honor of this Pride Month of June, I wanted to also highlight that the homelessness disproportionately and negatively affects the LGBTQ community. 40% of homeless youth nationally identify as LGBTQ. They face hostility, sexual violence, harassment, and rejection by their families, which may translate in negative encounters with law enforcement and severe mental health consequences. Please allot resources to this housing issue. This crisis will only get worse right here on your front lawn. Housing is the solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
After Diana, the next 3 speakers are Elizabeth Hansberg, Renee Valenti, and Nicole Everett.
Good afternoon. My name is Diana Heineck, and I want to say thank you for your time. I have 3 generations of women that have grown up in the mental health system in this county, and I can tell you I've never seen a housing crisis like this. I came from the street. I'm now sitting on your board of county mental health, and I want to thank you for that. I think that, you can ignore the situation, or we can do something about it so other people don't have to have the pain that you have 3 generations of women standing in front of you have suffered at the hands of a healthcare system that has been marginally effective. That when you talk about services, the services need to be meaningful services. We don't have a single DBT certified provider in this county, nor do we have a single DBT compliant program. We don't have a contract for inpatient medical detox with a provider in the county. We have, I talked to the county developer for land. We have land available on the outskirts that theoretically nobody wants. I know people that would be more than willing to take that land and build a tiny homes community. The thing is that where would you be willing to live in the places that you're asking people to live, or your parents, or your mothers, or your daughters? And to do otherwise, I can't see how you can do it in good conscience, because we're all brothers and sisters. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Elizabeth Hansberg. I live in Fullerton. I'm here to support the housing and wraparound services for the homeless, but perhaps more importantly, I'm here to make the connection between homelessness and the high cost of housing. This is a problem of scarcity in the market. I'm going to read from an article that was in the Mercury Tribune. The State Housing Department calculates that we need 180,000 more units a year to keep pace with population and to replace the units lost to fire and demolition. We barely build 100,000 new units. In other words, the gap between the housing we have and the housing we need to keep pace with population is growing, wider every minute. Why? The virtual unanimous conclusion of housing experts is the reluctance of local governments, particularly cities, to approve new housing projects due to the backlash from self-proclaimed environmentalists and not in my backyard activists. This is part of our problem. Affordable housing was more possible when we had more units, when supply met demand. I call on you to be regional leaders to champion housing construction. Of course, we have an obligation to take care of people who need help and are not possible to take care of themselves. But what we really need is more housing for the people that are stuck in the middle. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is Renee Valenti. I'm a police accountability activist and a homeless advocate in this area. The growing homeless population that's happening, visible for all of us to see, all of you see it every day. We all see it. Everybody's been coming here for months and months and months, telling you guys about it as well. Spoon feeding you solutions that you're blatantly refusing to consider according to your budget, where you have put $1.3 million into the law enforcement. Mustn't we ever forget about Kelly Thomas and the heavy hand of the law that took his life? In 2011, Kelly Thomas was a homeless schizophrenic individual who was killed by Fullerton police. No accountability was had to the officers that did that. The youth are here today to speak to all of you because they care. The youth care about the homeless. The youth care about the homeless more than you guys do. There's a problem in this county. There has been so much neglect in this county that the homeless are the fruit of the neglect tree in this county. What kind of fruit are we going to see by this blatant refusal to heed our solutions today? What kind of blood, how much blood will be on your, how much more blood will be on your hands because people are dying outside in the Civic Center and by the riverbed? You dragging your feet is disgusting, and it sends a message from this county that you do not care about the most vulnerable human beings in your area.
Thank you. Next speaker. We are done.
Madam Clerk, all speaker requests names have been called.
Great. Thank you very much. And this concludes the public comment section. Do you have? More. Okay. What's your name and where you live?
My name is Nicole Everett, and I'm a single mom who lives in Mission Viejo. I was late coming here today since I was up all night figuring out ways to pay my rent by the 15th to prevent being evicted. My daughter was late to school again because I slept through the 4 alarms that I have set. I must say that it troubles me that it takes so much effort to address the homelessness problem here in Orange County, and to find out that there's been a 10-year plan in place since 2010 that homelessness continues to be on the rise. I'm not sure why the board has missed this, because here we are 7 years later, and it takes the community members to remind you that the plan is not being implemented. What good is a plan without implementation? I can't help but to question why the OC Board of Supes have failed to ensure that the 10-year plan is doing what it says it's doing. I suppose it's much easier to go through the motions, but why take the easy route? Am I missing something? Are we missing something? I know that I would lose my job if I just went through the motions and could end up homeless too. I cannot help but to think that there is some type of hidden agenda. Please work with your community and show us that you really care about your community, and as members of the board that you take your job as seriously as I do mine. It's time that the OC Board of Supervisors start doing what they say they're doing and end homelessness by carrying out the plan and provide affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the public comment section. We'll now proceed to the agenda for this morning's meeting. This agenda contains a brief description of each item to be considered, except as otherwise provided by law. No action shall be taken on any item not appearing in today's agenda. The agenda is divided into 2 sections. All matters on the consent calendar are approved by one motion unless the board member requests a separate action on a specific item. Madam Clerk, I think I'm going to read for the public side when we come back, right? Or should we just read now about the public hearing item? Because we're going to go through the discussion and consent item right now.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Consent discussion first, yes.
Okay.
The board can make a motion on the consent calendar. There's only one item.
Right. So with that, I ask the clerk to identify.
Did she read it yet?
We didn't do
I
any
apologize.
changes. So
I
changes,
apologize.
changes to the agenda today. Madam Clerk?
We have no changes to the agenda today.
Okay. We have one item on the consent calendar this morning.
Unless somebody wants to pull it, I'll move it.
I'll second.
Okay, no objection. It's been moved. And we're going to move on to item number 2.
Under Sheriff Corner, receive and file status report and approve continuance of local emergency related to Theo Lacey Facility, H Barracks West, for unrepairable drain and plumbing system issues, and set review to determine need for continuing local emergency for June 27, 2017, 9:30 a.m., and every regularly scheduled meeting thereafter until terminated. And this item does require a 4/5 vote of the members present.
This is District 3 item.
Yes, it's a routine matter in the sense that we are routinely required to authorize the continuing existence of an emergency situation. I'll move the recommended actions.
Second.
No objections. Item passes. We're going to move on to supplemental 2A.
Under Register of Voters, approve issuance of requests for proposals for procurement of a new voting system that will support a vote center voting model throughout the county.
This is an all-district item.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If there's, I didn't hear a motion, so I'm going to move to deny the recommended actions and ask the registrar to come back with a plan that would implement our continuing system of using precinct operations, make recommendations to the board in that regard.
I second the motion. Objection? No? Okay. This item.
That's not an action. It's a directive.
It's a directive.
Motion to deny the recommended
Denied.
actions. That was
Okay,
a motion?
So we deny the motion.
We need to deny it? There's no motion.
There was direction, though, to staff.
Okay, all right.
Well, so I will read. Did somebody usurp? I did make a legal motion, so is somebody restating the record? I mean, because I'd like to correct it. If it's not necessary, then somebody should inform me, but I am the maker, and I thought I did something that was appropriate and lawful, so maybe you could explain to me, Mr. County Counsel.
Thank you, Supervisor Spitzer. I think everything is on the up and up. Everything was appropriate.
Yeah,
you made a motion to deny the ASR.
Right.
That motion was seconded by the chair.
Right.
So the ASR was denied. You also had a directive to the registrar to come back with a plan.
With respect to the continuing operation of precinct voting, yes. All right, great, thank you.
Okay. So everybody denied for this, and then we're going to move on to supplemental item 2B.
Under Supervisor Spitzer, approve agreement and license agreement with Orange County Human Relations Council for services supporting OC Human Relations Commission. Make CEQA and other findings. Authorize Chief Real Estate Officer to execute license agreement and authorize OC Community Resources Director or designee to execute cost contingency increase not to exceed 10%, make line item budget transfer under certain conditions, and execute agreement.
This is all district item?
No, actually, it's not.
It's supervisor.
It's my item.
Oh,
You could start like you did last week if you want.
boy, you remember for a long
I
time.
do remember, I'm like an elephant.
Yes, Supervisor
All right,
Spitzer,
thank you very much.
can start.
No, colleagues, with all seriousness, this is a very serious item from my point of view. I agendized it when we had 4 members present. Supervisor Nelson is back. We split 2-2. And so I re-agendized it for a full vetting by this board. It's obviously, as Mr. Kennedy testified, we had a robust number of speakers last time, and I know Supervisor Nelson well, and I know that he does his homework, so there's no need to spend a lot of time rehashing the arguments. I just would say the following, because it is here again, and I do not know the extent to which Supervisor Nelson reviewed the record. I just personally think that this county absolutely needs a standing commission that's doing the work of both the commission and the council. We've had from time to time unrest in our county, in Anaheim and Fullerton, Huntington Beach with white supremacists from time to time. And the police chiefs, the sheriff testified last time, the chiefs of police from all the Chiefs and Sheriffs Association, the chiefs signed a letter asking us to continue to support this. It's a tool that law enforcement uses when there's either civil unrest or they believe through intelligence gathering in their community there could be civil unrest. So I think it's very, very important to maintain this. It's clearly not without controversy, and it's clear that there are people who feel that it should look a different way. I have no problem having that conversation, but let's not allow them to get kicked out of their space and people to lose their jobs. If we're going to have a conversation about that, we have an ad hoc. They should come back after we approve this, and we can continue in a more deliberate and calm manner, not with this sense of urgency, whether we want to make some changes in the future. I know we talked about it last time, that there's a feeling that the council and the commission should have come back with their recommendations, but I think there's just too much at stake to allow this to lapse. So I'm going to make a motion, and it will be what it will be, and we will move on whatever the outcome, but I would respectfully ask for support. So it'll be my motion to make the recommended actions, which are consistent with the direction the board gave to do the RFP. I simply just took the recommended actions from the staff that had been deleted off our agenda and re-agendized them. So my motion is to move the recommended action.
Supervisor Bartlett?
Okay, and I agree with my colleague, Supervisor Spitzer. We had a real robust discussion at our last board meeting about this. We had a number of speakers that came, and I appreciate everyone attending from our last board meeting and also today. The Human Relations Commission does some very important work out there in the community, and they work very closely with our community members and certainly law enforcement out there. And they are the only entity that really covers some very difficult subject matter items that come up in our community. They're very sensitive items. There's sometimes a lot of racial tension and other things, and it takes a collaborative effort to be able to calm the waters out there, and the Commission has really done, in my opinion, a great job of doing that. I know that their annual event every year that I attend, we have over 1,000 people in attendance. There is a huge amount of support from a lot of the leaders in the community, not just business leaders, community members, elected officials and such, who understand the great and important work that the Commission does. if we need to change some things, let's certainly put together an ad hoc and bring that forth with some recommended changes that need to take place. But I think we're at a critical juncture right now where they've received an eviction notice for July 1st, and we really need to pull the trigger today to move forward. So they've got a kind of a brick and mortar place to have an office and to have staff to be able to conduct the good work that they do. So I will second the motion to Supervisor Spitzer. Thank you.
Supervisor Nelson.
Thank you. And again, all of you know, I apologize for being gone with 3 active teenage kids. You've got one had to leave a day early for finals, and the other started summer school today. So my summer chance was last week, or don't have a vacation with the family. And given the age of the 2 older, that may be the last one anyway, because people go off to college and join the military and do that kind of stuff. When it comes to this issue, it's always odd, the swing vote because you weren't here. Of course, if I'd have voted first, it'd be irrelevant. But a few items. First of all, it's very obvious that law enforcement finds this a valuable tool. And when they don't need it, they don't need it. And when they do, if it's not there, then it's a little too late to create it. So the short version is this. I am supportive of keeping this commission. However, I've been here. They've been given all kinds of sort of admonitions from the board. For the most part, the entirety of my duration here, which this is probably my 7th budget. Some they've heeded, some not so much. I mean, there's definitely, from my point of view, there's sort of a resentment. I've seen this in a lot of commissions when I was on a city council. People on commissions think they ought to be able to do what they ought to do. Frankly, they should operate independently. But our unique government sort of works like this. You get power because you are either elected, in this country anyway, or you're appointed by electeds. And I run into commissioners, not exclusive to this commission. Man, I ran into this on the bicycle commission in Fullerton. People have a resentment that they report to anybody. We all report to somebody. And the pushback that, hey, we do our own thing. Look, we're elected. I can't apologize for that. I was elected with 84% of the vote. Maybe that was an accident. I don't know. But I mean, I ran in an open election. That's what we've got. I can only speak for myself. It makes me very uncomfortable as a sort of libertarian-leaning guy when I see the government funding things that go to they get too close to promoting political causes. I'm not going to go into too much detail other than it's very frustrating sometimes when certain controversial speakers and groups seem, in my view, to be coddled by the commission. It's that simple. You need to stay away from that stuff. I think things have gotten better. I also think that there's a change afoot, and I'd like to see where this change leads us. But at the end of the day, I'm supportive of voting to keep the commission. What I'm not supportive of is a 3-year contract with 2 one-year options. So and the 10%, item 3, at least on the agenda, is sort of a 10% contingency. What I would ask the motion makers is, rather than just sort of fire this missile and have this same discussion again, if there truly are changes afoot, newer commissioners, retirement of its longest, its only leader for that matter, Rusty's been around since its existence. I'd like to see where this is at next spring. Whether that includes an ad hoc from the board, I'd like to see what direction they're going. What does this new direction mean? Rather than a 3-year contract that sort of we have this discussion, I guess long enough in the future that some people will have forgotten about it. So my request is that we continue to fund, but fund for a year, and that this come back to this board next year. Not to torture these people, because to go through this every year, I appreciate resources and being efficient. It's not efficient to run everybody through the grinder, including this board, and have 500 speakers come up here and all that. But for this literal one last time, I would just like to see if they're listening, if their results are really showing that they're listening, and we can finally just approve a longer-term agreement and move on. So, I mean, that's my request to the motion maker.
Madam Chair.
Let me.
Well, I'm the maker. He asked if I would accept it.
Sure.
The answer is unequivocally yes. I had tried to tee that up last week. I couldn't get the year for that reason. The only thing I'd request in response is we need. There is an ad hoc, my understanding, of the chair or the vice chair, but they weren't necessarily supportive, and of moving forward. Maybe it's moving. I don't want to. You need to characterize. That's probably why you pushed your button. I think we just need to understand right now. What can we embark on so we can get our arms around this, and when? Because I don't want to push up against this and find ourselves in the same place. So if somebody could come up with some recommendations, the ad hoc is fine with me. Just say, when do you think you'll be ready to come back with some ideas that we could discuss? And hopefully it'll be in the next 60 to 90 days so we can really vet this, and then we can start to work these ideas in the community. So I just need some feedback on that, because I have no problem with the year, but I want to know we have a real opportunity to figure out how we're going to solve this going forward.
We already gave them 1 year, and it was not really working out. I don't know why we have to extend another year here, but let me, we have an ad hoc committee between me and Vice Chair Doe, and I'm going to ask Vice Chair Doe to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can read the count votes here, so I know which way we're headed. I just want to add some more facts to this discussion. Last time I mentioned the commingling of the public-private aspect to this whole endeavor, and the fudging of where does the public entities end and the private entities start. And I'm going to refer back to the Orange County Grand Jury report of 2004 and 2005, 12 years ago. And in that, one of the recommendations was that the Orange County Board of Supervisors should support the Orange County Human Relations Commission to the degree that the commission remains under county auspices, and two, retains its county rather than private identity. Exactly the point that I raised. And despite getting a response letter from the council over the weekend stating all the reasons why my comments were off base, factually inaccurate, well, guess what? I went on my trusty old phone and I looked up Orange County Human Relations Commission. And the web page for the commission is housed where? On the ochumanrelations.org. And when you get onto the ochumanrelations.org today, what is that? It's a nonprofit, a council. Now, the thing that surprises me, and I don't know whether this oversight is deliberate, in disregard of the comments I have made, and not just now, but last year and the year before that, I don't know what the purpose was in continuing to do this, right, despite the concerns that we raised last week. Even today, and just to make sure, and I wanted to make sure that the website is actually up to date, it referred to an agenda from a June 8, 2017 meeting last week. So I know it's up to date. Okay? So this goes to the heart of the grand jury report and my concern. And it's been 12 years. And we have mentioned this twice since I've been on this board. This will be the third time for me as a county supervisor. And so I ask you, and I'm not averse to another year. That's not the point. The point is it's taken 12 years and it's taken 3 tries for us to get here today. What does it take for the council to get it straight? To understand that at some point the public entity answers to us, and that's a separate entity from the council. So when you sit down and you talk about the council, you need to make it clear to the public, we are a nonprofit, and to the degree that we provide staffing to the commission, the contact should be to the commission, not to the nonprofit. When you hit the contacting on the commission, guess where it goes to? The nonprofit, even still to this day. What does it take? Supervisor Nelson, I respect your deliberation. Like I said, I can count the votes, but I'm hoping that my comments will emphasize again the urgency as to this issue. As far as Supervisor Spitzer's request for a timetable, we are an ad hoc. We have another year. I don't want to bootstrap us into any kind of artificial deadline. We need time to think through this, get input from community members, from stakeholders, and work up a structure, and then work with the council and possibly the commission to see where the collaboration can continue to be and where it needs to be distinct. As you and I know, we have worked on numerous ad hocs before, from the ethics submission to OIR. It may seem simple in concept, right? But it takes months for this to get going. So therefore, no, today the ad hoc, I don't speak for the chair, but for myself, I'm uncomfortable putting some kind of constraints on time and commit us to a specific time going forward. We will do our best to look at the structure, and if this staffing model continues for the council, we will sit down and discuss with the council and the commission separately and get input, and then we will propose that structure to the rest of the board. Thank you.
Supervisor Nelson.
Thank you. And Supervisor Doe, I don't know that it's seen as polite. It's meant as trying to be polite. I make the comments I make so that hopefully people that are living it get it, and I don't have to explain in painful detail and embarrass everybody. But your points are valid. Look, this is a big issue. Chief Walters sitting to my left, I know in dealing with police chiefs, they find value in having this, and we don't have an alternative. That's the good part. Some of this administrative cleanup stuff has just been lingering forever. And it is frustrating because on the one hand, I could prove a big point here. That's not the objective. I mean, ultimately, it's to serve people, not to prove a point. So my hope is that somebody will pay attention, get this little administrative nonsense that's been lingering apparently for at least, 14 years. Shouldn't be difficult to resolve. Make a clear delineation between your foundation and the county's commission.
Is that the grand jury report?
And
Can I see it for you?
get it together. Because if we just can't, we're in a really bad spot. Because to vote no just has a connotation that it means a lot of things that it wouldn't mean. To vote no, to force me to vote no is an admission I cannot get my administrative act together, not any statement or belief on my part about the good work that's done. And I'm just begging the people in the audience that are involved in the commission, get it together, folks, please. We want to support you. The mission is righteous. It's the rest of this nonsense. So whatever is going on with the inability to do some minor, basic administrative tasks, please get focused on that for whatever brief period of time it requires to clean it up. Because next time, if we have to relive this movie for my 8th lap around the track, my objective is going to be to just figure out another way to deliver these services, chum the system, get rid of it, and start up with a new commission that's just straight up 100% in the county's domain so that we can stop the distraction. That shouldn't be necessary, and you don't need to hear a speech from me. But, the good works, all the people served, that's really not the point, and that's not what's pushing this board. It's we have some administrative requirements, right? It's the part we all answer to somebody. It's inconvenient, I get it. But get it handled, please. Just please. I mean, you got all these people at stake, police departments at stake, 40 years of service in Rusty's case. Could we get the administrative stuff worked out? Next year, it's not fair to put us in a situation that you're leaning on our emotions and the issue of the people served and yet another rendition of, and by the way, we can't get some basic administrative stuff resolved to differentiate the fact that we have a foundation, does raise a lot of money and does some great things with all kinds of prominent people in our county, and we have a commission. Just please help us help you, and don't put me in this situation. I'm used to it. I'll deal with it, but you're not going to like the result next time. Just flag the tape, go home and find it. If you don't clean this stuff up, I 100% reluctantly tell you, I am a no next year if this nonsense continues. It's unnecessary. And I hope, whatever the timeline is, that if the ad hoc comes up with it in 6 months or 10, just, if we can't get this together, we're going to be looking to them to just come up with a new system. And we'll do the same good work and not have to rely on people to get basic administrative stuff done.
County Council Page.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with respect to the motion that I heard proposed and seconded, and then how to apply that in terms of the recommended actions, there were 4 recommended actions in the ASR. So the first recommended action would remain. That's finding that the subject activity is categorically exempt from CEQA. The second recommended action, select the Orange County Human Relations Council for an award. That would remain, but where it currently reads July 1, 2017 through June 30, 2020, we'd instead revise that to the ASR, the recommended action, to read through June 30, 2018, period. The third recommended action is no longer needed. That related to the cost contingency increases, since this is now for a finite term. I think that recommended action is no longer necessary, and we'd make a corresponding change to recommended action 4 so that it would read July 1, 2017 through June 30, 2018, period. So I think that's how we would accomplish the motion.
Supervisor Spitzer.
Go ahead.
Do we need to change the cost amount as well? Or can we keep it at 756,000 since we change it to 1 year?
Change 1 year. Annual cost is 252 here. So.
Because I think the annual amount is 252, so we should change it to that then.
Michelle, is that right? 252, it's fine?
On the second page,
Yeah.
it says it.
Yeah, thanks.
Supervisor Spitzer.
So, okay. So Supervisor Doe was kind enough to give me a copy of the grand jury report. I wasn't here. I was gone in the legislature in 0405. But Frank, you were here, right, Mr. Kim? What was your position in the county in 0405?
0405, I was in charge of the budget office, I believe.
Perfect. Then that's why I want to ask you this question. So I want to make sure I understand something. And we can get more into it, not today necessarily, but it's my understanding, and I think I was on the board back from 97 to 2002, where we were continuing to put pressure away from county funds, especially because of the bankruptcy, and we were basically asking the commission to look for other sources of funding vis-a-vis forming a nonprofit called the council. So I just have a very specific question. When you look at the findings of the grand jury 0405, it talks about the fact there's a finding, 7.1, that the Orange County Human Relations Commission needs the support of the county in order to serve the entire populace, since problems develop regardless of borders. And then there was a finding, 7.2, the Orange County Human Relations Commission needs adequate and consistent funds from the Orange County Board of Supervisors, and then it goes on, etc. And the recommendation is 8.1, county support. The board should support the Orange County Human Relations Commission to the extent that 1 remains under county auspices and 2 retains its county rather than private identity, and then we adequately fund it, which is recommendation 8.2. Was historically with our prior boards, was there a push for a commission, or in this case, I guess a council as a private nonprofit, to raise monies to help offset the county's financial responsibility? Do you remember that part of the history?
So I don't have perfect recollection, but I do recall a time, sometime in the early 2000s, where there was a directive, I believe, from the board for the HRC to come back and present a funding plan that would reduce or eliminate county general fund, and that it would be managed and funded through
private fundraising,
private funding, et cetera. And as I recall, and Rusty may be able to address this, as I recall, Rusty did provide, when he was still a county employee, it was a short report in terms of general steps, how that might be accomplished. But I don't recall that the board ever adopted that as a policy guidance.
That's been discussed during this decade, though. Those admonitions have been made, and the asks have been made of Rusty, and I think they've responded. I mean, they raise a lot of money.
No, the only point I wanted to make, just wanted to test whether it might be potentially legitimate, is that the more you put pressure on an outside entity under a commission-sanctioned county function, the more you lose your control and autonomy because you're pushing it off in another direction by the pressure of the county itself. So I just want to be really careful. If we ask them to go out and raise money because the county was saying in contravention of the grand jury to find adequate funding, then we may have created this disassociation ourselves because we've pushed it off to a private entity who has a different board or different responsibilities or different people they answer to. So I think as part of this analysis, we need to make some decisions. If we're going to bring it back like the old days before there was that push, then we need to make some decisions about whether we are going to fully fund what you need to do to deal with a county of 3.3 million people and maybe take the pressure off the council. So that is a major discussion.
That's right.
Because if we want to say this is a county board with the Board of Supervisors controlling the message, the issues, and things like that, which is what I keep hearing, I've kind of said there's some things probably as a board you just want to let them handle because they're very sensitive and difficult issues. But if there's a sense to pull it back, then we would move in the opposite direction of potentially having to fully fund this through county general fund or other resources. I'm just highlighting the fact you can't really have it both ways necessarily. If you're going to ask somebody to go out and raise money privately, you're going to get autonomy. If you pull it back and you put more county control, you're going to get more authority from our board. So we need to figure out what that all looks like and where that balance is. But at the end of the day, my gut tells me that part of the decision is going to be, is the board going to fully fund this if we really want to make the decisions about its future? But if we inadvertently, through prior boards, push that away by putting pressure on the council to raise money, then we kind of got what we asked for potentially. And that might have been prior boards. But I think as part of the analysis for the ad hoc, I would like to understand how the funding got derived so we can make some decisions about if we're going to pull it back, what's it going to cost, and how we're going to do it within our own resource allocation. So that would just, I think, I'm just asking you all to look at that.
Supervisor Doe.
Thank you. You hit the issue right on the head, and that's why my comments earlier that things are not as easy and clear-cut as it may appear at first glance, because we do have that murky area of where, in the past, a prior board had asked the council to raise money to do some of the work related to the Human Relations Commission. And here is where it gets very complicated for me is this. When you have a council of nonprofit mixing with a public entity, and then that nonprofit goes out and contracts with agencies. It contracts under its nonprofit status, but yet is doing work under the name of the commission, which is a public entity, which we have very little, if any, input or control over or any oversight. And so then when that commission or that body that is now the commingling of the public-private, when the private side of it speaks, does it really speak for the private side or does it speak under the authority of the public side? You see? So that's why I find this structure very troubling. And I struggle with it myself as to what is the right way to set this up. And so I can't tell you sitting here where I may end up or where the ad hoc may end up. That's why it is important that I find that we need to at least separate the two first, and then we will discuss in earnest how do we make it work, right? But we cannot come up with a solution until those two entities are completely separate. That's it. That's all I'm asking for at this.
Supervisor Spitzer.
Mr. Kim, I have a question. We're going into budget after lunch. The rules are very simple. It takes 3 votes to pass a budget, takes 4 votes to change a budget. So if during this discussion mid-year, if we don't allocate monies or put them aside today on a 3 vote, it could need a 4 vote if we decide to allocate additional funds non-budgeted mid-year to the Human Relations Commission if we decide to change the model. So what I'd like to know is if we can consider during budget hearings putting a sum of monies somewhere into escrow trust, whatever you want to call it, so that if there's 3 members of the board who want to The government code's coming out. I must have suggested something that got Leon all alarmed. What's not legal? No, whatever department has a Human Relations Commission, I'm just asking you all to think about it and talk about it this afternoon, about monies potentially for the ability of dealing with the Human Relations Commission. I'm just highlighting it now.
So we can highlight it when we cover Orange County Community Resources. That is the department that it's in. What I can share with you today, right now, is that the $252,000 is incorporated into the base budget. So if the board adopts the base budget, that is in, and that spending and appropriations is incorporated. If the board decides midstream next year that the board would like to, say, as an example, early terminate the contract and fully fund the commission and expend additional dollars beyond the 252, that would take a 4/5 vote. So,
exactly.
so today the 252 is built into the base.
So that's what I'm asking. How can we preserve that potential option for a discussion and maintain a 3 vote?
So the simple way to accomplish that is during the discussion and the board straw votes on the community resources budget, your board may request or direct staff to allocate and appropriate additional contingency funds within that department. We would need to make an adjustment. We'd either have to balance it from reducing other contingency funds that we have in the budget or draw from reserves, but there's got to be a funding component to the appropriations.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm just asking, since we are going to take a break, Ms. Aguirre and her staff can at least, Lisa Bun Johnson, you can at least look at that so we can at least put a placeholder. I don't know how to effectuate it, but I do know in order to maintain your vote counts, you got to do something during the budget. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay, so could you just recite your motion?
Well, Mr. Page did, but the motion is to move the recommended actions. Number 2 would be amended to be July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018. The rest of that sentence would be stricken, except at a total cost of $252,000, and then everything after that, the additional 2 years would be stricken. We're striking all of 3, and in 4, we're just changing June 30th, 2020 to 2018, and striking the rest of that sentence.
Madam Clerk, could you do the roll call?
Sure.
Who did the second?
I was the second.
By Supervisor Bartlett.
Supervisor Spitzer?
Aye.
Supervisor Bartlett?
Aye.
Vice Chair Doe?
Then to go from
Supervisor Nelson? Supervisor Nelson? Yes. And Chairwoman Steele?
no. So we are finishing our discussion items, and we're going to go into the recess, and we're going to come back by 1. Thank you very much.